I'm Patrick Byers, retired horticulture field specialist and produce food safety specialist with University of Missouri Extension. Thank you for joining us for this series of videos on-farm produce food safety. Produce food safety at a farmer's market is an interesting thing to consider. First of all, a couple of general statements. In many cases, the vendors at a farmer's market don't have a lot of control over the policies of the market, particularly those that relate to contact between produce, people, and animals. Secondly, the farmer's market environment frequently is an open environment. And again, vendors don't have a lot of control over what happens above, around, and sometimes even within the farmer's market booth. Now, there are several things that a vendor should advocate for at a farmer's market. And first and foremost is the availability of clean, well-maintained bathroom and hand washing facilities. Secondly, advocate for a separate break area for farmer's market vendors. An animal control policy is very important, either an animal-free market or a policy where animals are kept under restraint. And finally, for those equipment and supplies that are used by vendors, there should be separate storage areas that can keep these materials clean and sanitary. Produce food safety at market begins before market. First of all, the people who sell at farmers market should have training in produce food safety. Use good agricultural practices in producing crops that are as microbially safe as possible. The people who go to market should go in clean clothing, they should have clean hair, and obviously clean hands. And finally, the produce that you send to market should not be bruised, damaged, or otherwise less than top quality. Transport of produce to farmers market is a key step in the chain of produce food safety. First of all transport vehicles should be clean, and if they've been used for other purposes, they should be clean and sanitized. If you're using refrigerated transport, make sure that you maintain the cold chain from the cooler on the farm through transport, through sales at the farmer's market. Let's talk about an effective display from the standpoint of produce food safety. First thing to consider is to keep produce off the ground. In the case of a tabletop display, that takes care of itself. In the case of stored produce, let's have it up on a pallet and within a bin or something to keep it safe. Let's think about the risk of contamination to low-lying produce from animals or perhaps from children, and design displays accordingly. Let's make sure that all food contact surfaces, tabletops, tools, etc., are kept in a clean and sanitized situation. Let's make sure that the farmer's market display is covered by a canopy to help reduce the risk of wind-blown contamination. And finally, let's think about having a hand washing station at the farmer's market booth. There are situations where hands can become contaminated, and it's very convenient to wash your hands while you're at the booth. Let's talk about the actual sales at a farmer's market booth. First of all, it's helpful to separate operations. Have one person that focuses on produce and helping customers with produce, and have another person that focuses on things such as taking cash, cleaning and sanitizing, those sorts of things. That way you reduce the risk of contamination directly to the produce. In some cases, produce can be sold in pre-packaged containers or packaging. This obviously reduces the risk of contamination. Other produce that is sold in a bulk fashion should be placed into new food-grade packaging before giving to the customer. And then it's helpful to help reduce customer contact with produce. Obviously, this can be done in a courteous fashion by assisting customers, but important that produce end up in customers' hands without the risk of contamination. If a customer provides a tote or something else to carry produce, place that produce, again, in a clean, single-use plastic bag before placing it into the customer's tote. Sanitation is part of the experience at a farmer's market booth. Make sure that you keep all food contact surfaces in a clean and sanitary. Make sure that you only use food-grade packaging. Make sure that you have a conversation with customers about washing produce when they get home. And then make sure you have a good hand washing policy, so anytime hands become contaminated, they can be cleaned. And finally, let's think about gloves. Gloves can be helpful at a farmer's market, but it's easy to contaminate gloves. And if gloves become contaminated, they must be changed and replaced. So in conclusion, remember that produce food safety at the farmer's market begins on the farm. It extends through the transport process to the market. It includes great strategies for constructing displays, and it includes good practices when it comes to handling produce and interacting with customers. And then a final point to be made, there should always be a sign, a clear sign that identifies the farm at the farmer's market booth. This aids in traceability if there's ever any questions on the part of a customer in where produce originated. I'm Patrick Byers, retired horticulture field specialist and produce food safety specialist with University of Missouri Extension. Thank you for joining us for this series of videos on produce food safety.